Okay. Need a motion on something as soon as I get, let me open up here.
The agenda.
Can't wet my fingers, so. That's the thing I miss the most. Masking, wetting my fingers. All right. Need a motion on the agenda.
So move.
Moved and seconded. Joe and Steve. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The minutes from the last meeting. That was in January. So,
I can move to accept.
moved by Doug,
Second.
second by Steve. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Anybody got a conflict of interest? Any public comment? There's no one around.
Nope. May double check, make sure.
Got any information from supervisors not seated? Don't see any.
Let me
You
see
wanna take
if,
care for Vince?
yeah, let me see if Supervisor Bonneprice is on real quick. Hold on.
Oh,
Supervisor Bonneprice, is that you on the
On
phone?
the phone.
Okay,
I'm live on the phone, Vince.
all right, we got you. I've only got a couple little things and then I'll update on the centerpiece complex later on. The governor's preliminary budget is out. We're going through that now. There are some significant changes involving justice, TAD grant, juvenile justice, things like that in the governor's budget, which we're looking at now. So it will be pretty impactful on public safety if it passes as is. Having said that, you know, it's going to change a lot between now and when the House approves it, but we're looking at those now. TAD is looking at a significant increase. You know, TAD is what funds CJCC. The TAD grant funds a good portion of CJCC.
really?
And the governor's proposing a significant increase in that. So that may be one good thing. The other thing that's coming down the pipe is the U.S. House passed the next stimulus package. And in that is direct aid to counties and local governments. So we've got tentative numbers of what Polk counties would look like if it passes as is. I don't want to say
What would it be?
it's
Somewhere in the ballpark.
like $9 million.
Really, for Polk County?
Not that we would have that, you know, not that we have that much need, but it's liable to be pared down. But when we do that, there are a list of things that, you know, we didn't do during the budget process because we didn't want to levy it at the Justice Center. There's other things that may be coming back to this committee to consider to use that money for. So just to put on your horizon there.
Oh, you start breaking up $1 trillion and it goes quite a ways down to a little county like this for
Yeah.
that many?
And that number will change. That was just the tentative number when they first broke it out. So that's all I've really got until we get to the
If
center.
we don't take it, then somebody else is gonna get it, so. That's the only thing.
Yeah, that last bill they passed, there's a lot of the money still sitting there. A lot of it was
Still sitting there.
unspent. It never got spent. It gets pulled back up. Because even in Wisconsin with that last bunch of money,
Right.
there was like 22 million left that was awarded to Wisconsin counties that went back up. That went back up to the feds that didn't come back down. So sometimes it doesn't all get spent. Because you got to have justifiable need. You got to be able to prove
Right.
it.
Hopefully.
It's still taxpayer money.
Where does that money go to? Back to budget?
We put it into a special fund and then things that would normally be paid for with levy dollars get paid with that money.
I mean, the federal,
Federal money, yeah,
it goes
goes back
to budget.
back in the tax
So the
coffers.
original one was depleted by that amount, is back in the budget.
Right.
Oh, good. Great. Okay, anything else? Any questions?
Chad, can I ask you a question?
Sure. Want an answer?
It's under it's under Health and Human Services now. It used to be under our public protection. Under child support in that area, after that visit to Madison last year, we got a $30 million increase. Is there anything increased in child support or that area of a juvenile protection?
Yeah, there's
Did you
several
see anything?
areas, and off the top of my head on that point, I don't have them right in front of me. There are several areas in the governor's proposed budget that deal with child support. I know they had an allotment. Juvenile justice has a significant allotment. And there's a lot towards community-based programs, foster families, things like that. So those are
Yeah,
addressed
well,
pretty heavily.
that's good. That's good news. That suffices my question. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, anybody else? Hearing none, we'll move on to County Highway. Harvey. Not good.
Just a update in highway on some of the federal projects got going on right now. The bridge on 40th Street there in the town of Beaver, that bid came in, it was approximately 80,000 over budget. Right now, it's about 9.8%. We're proceeding with change management with the state on that project, but approving the bids to move the project. That came in a little higher than that because that bridge right there we have to construct a bypass bridge next to that bridge because it's on a dead end. Then build the bridge and then remove the other bridge. So a little more expensive on that one. County Road M is ready for rebid in April, still scheduled for summer construction on that one. County Road E through the reservation, working with Coleman Engineering out of Michigan. They got a grant for a paved and lighted walking path to go next to County Road E. There'll be 4 signed crosswalks on that stretch also. So that's federal funding on that one. The bridges on 65th Avenue and 270th Avenue, one in McKinley, one in Apple River. They're in final phases of design and permitting. The bridge in Clear Lake on 30th Street gets let March 9th for bids for that one. Bridges on County K, County B, and Church Road. I'm in negotiating contracts for that one with the firms, and we started scoping on those projects, delineating those out there. County Road F, the pavement replacement from Amory to Duranda, the soil borings are complete on that one, and we started pavement design for that one. Also, what I handed out to you there is the state work map right now for their projects. You can see for this year, they got downtown Amory in there. And you can kind of look by the years to see when they have the other ones scheduled out there. Some of these are scheduled for advancement by a year or so. It all depends on state funding on those. The summer road school this year is going to be June 7th, 8th, and 9th. Those registrations will be coming out to you probably around mid-March. As soon as I get those, I'll forward them on to the county clerk for get out to you guys. As Chad said, the governor's budget for highway looks pretty good. They show an increase in GTA right now of 2.5% each year, and another 75 million supplemental program like the MLS. But we'll wait and see if that stays right now. So far, it looks pretty good. Working with the town of Osceola, they requested no engine braking signs on County M coming down the hill into Nye, and County Double N northbound. So they're working on their ordinance, and once that's complete, I'll bring that to you guys for the final on that one. We'll install the signs. WCHA update, we're working on restructuring the local programs. The meeting with WISDOT has not been set yet on that one, but moving forward that one. The Flagger Rights Bill is gaining traction on that. We got a new sponsor, so that's moving forward. The itemized enforcement on that, though, may not make it through there. Commissioners training is April 27th and 28th at the Trula Vista. And then the last thing, Cargill Salt Mine in Louisiana is closing for good. So we may see an increase in salt prices coming up there. And the ones in Michigan, those two companies are merging into one company. So we may see an increase in salt costs coming out of theirs. That's it.
Okay, any questions?
Oh,
Yeah, but, Mr. Chair, can I ask Mo a question?
Go ahead.
Originally, on the 243 bridge, they were gonna just, fix those potholes. And then they ended up, doing the whole deck, completion. So do you think that that's going to, postpone that, the redesign of the deck on 243? I heard came from somebody in Minnesota that they thought it was going to even postpone in 5 years.
I have not heard that. It is a Minnesota project, but I haven't heard it's being postponed because it's directly tied into the replacement of the Highway 8 bridge. But I can look into it for you.
It's a pretty nice bridge deck right now once they redone it. But
Correct.
that doesn't have anything to do with this. It's the structural part that they questioned.
Correct. It was the structural gussets on that bridge that needed replacement. But I'll do a follow-up with WisDOT on there and see if they've heard anything.
Yeah, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Steve, you have something?
If my memory serves me, that bridge has the same exact plate design as the 35 bridge that fell, right?
Correct.
Same
It
problem.
does.
Same designer, same problem.
Mine is, the tribe got involved in some of the federal funding for projects, took over certain road segments, correct?
No,
They never did do that?
they never did that. They've never taken over the segments, working concurrently through the reservation there on this walking path. But that's 100% federal funding on that one.
So they quit pushing on that.
Right.
Okay, great. Anybody else? Thanks, Mo.
Thank you.
Sheriff Wall.
I've been asked to talk about problems associated with methamphetamine and present today. So Don, Chief Deputy Burrows here has prepared a PowerPoint, and we're just going to kind of talk through some of the issues we see. I just want to give a little historical perspective of it. I started my career full-time in the city of Chippewa Falls in 1996, and I had a drug officer from the Midwest Task Force come over, and he said, meth is coming, and it's going to be the biggest impact you're going to have in your entire law enforcement career. And as a young cop, you think, yeah, whatever. And I can honestly tell you that he was right, and it has been the biggest thing that's impacted law enforcement in my career. I started in Polk County full-time in 1998, and it has been a battle to keep meth out of this county ever since. When I first started here in the early 2000s, we were the #1 county for labs. We had labs popping up everywhere. One of the largest labs the state ever dismantled was right down in just by Nye. And it was unbelievable. And the state would take pictures and use it as a teaching aid, that it was that dysfunctional and dangerous. This was dangerous stuff. And I'll give the legislature props because they got the law changed where you couldn't just buy Sudafed over the counter. Sudafed was one of the key ingredients to making methamphetamine. And you used to be able to go into a gas station and buy Sudafed. In fact, the clerks would tell us who was buying it because people would come in and buy the entire shelf of Sudafed because they were running right out and making it into a lab and converting it to methamphetamine. With that, over the years, we've evolved to combat the problem, and I think that's a good example of how, those steps got rid of the labs. The meth we see now comes across typically from Mexican border. I got to sit in with Sheriff Mike Lamb, who's the Final County, Arizona sheriff, who's very outspoken about drug trafficking and human trafficking, because he's down in Arizona, and he says, like I say, the meth problem he has is also our meth problem, because that meth that gets through his borders makes its way up here. And with our proximity to Minneapolis, that's why we see such an influx of methamphetamine here. But I'd like to say it's supply demand. There's a demand for it. We got to find a way to stop that demand. And we're going to talk a little bit about that, some of the ways we combat this strategy. And I want to say too, this is my time to compliment the staff I have. I have a dedicated group of people that go out every day and try to make a difference in the meth world. We do a lot of search warrants. We go after it. In fact, you're seeing training today when you came in, all the squads are out here. That's the SWAT team doing their training. The emergency response team, they serve warrants, high risk warrants all the time. So their training keeps them on their toes, and we work really hard at having skilled, well-trained people to go out and service every day in this county.
We'll start out with some stats here. Real quick, so meth is a felony in Wisconsin, so our felony arrest for methamphetamine, we had 361 last year. With that, we seized about 3,543 grams of methamphetamine. That's about 8 pounds of meth. So if you think about 8 pounds of meth, it's about 1 pound what meth looks like.
That's not actually meth.
No, it's sugar. So that's what about a pound of methamphetamine looks like. So we had almost 8 of these within last year. And then with that, this is about what a typical meth user will use in one time. It's just a small little amount of that for each time that you get high. So, I mean, it doesn't take much. But when you compare it to a pound, it speaks volumes.
I always like to think of that as, think of how much destruction is in that pound bag of meth. How many people use that amount of meth? Because when we stop a car and find meth, usually we find that tiny little bag with just a few crystals in it. And that's what the average addict is using. You know, and they may use that every day, but like I say, they typically don't have large quantities on them. But it's a sickness and they need it, so they get it. But when you see a pound of meth, and we can get those large quantities, and we've had several big cases this last year. I'm really proud of the fact that during COVID, that using proper procedures and precautions, we were still able to go after this problem. And seizing 8 pounds of meth during a pandemic, I think, is a tremendous victory for us, that we still, you know, we didn't give up. We didn't say, well, we're just going to let the problem go on. We still went out and did our jobs, even under the circumstances.
Exactly. So yeah, like you said, this is just 8 pounds of meth is about what we seized last year. So just imagine how much more is coming in here. We're probably just scraping the surface about the amount of meth that comes into our county. So last year with COVID, we still tried to keep business as usual. Our guys did 154 warrants, 30 control buys. The money they seized there was almost 30 grand, but a lot of that times that money goes back for return to the person or court costs or whatever the court deems. We don't typically get to keep a lot of that money. Firearms seized 8, and then overall we had almost 540 cases last year of drug cases that we investigated. Okay. So if you want to break this down in cost, what it costs Polk County, again, we're just scratching the surface here. I think our numbers are pretty conservative. They're probably a little bit higher than this. So looking at our jail housing in 2019, and comparing 2019 and 2020, we have about 45% of our people that we house are meth related. Now this is just meth charges. Now, if we want to look at meth related, it could be a lot more because we're going to have people that are locked up for bail jumping, fail to miss their court date, so they get a warrant out for them, so they're housed for the warrant or whatever. So it's not classified as a meth related crime, but it's meth related. So figuring this out, for our cost for inmate daily charge, last year was $121 per housing or bed day. So taking that by 45% for our total bed days, we spent almost over $1.3 million just in our jail costs. And meth is affecting our jail. Twice this year, we've already had meth come into our jail where they've smuggled it in. So I mean, they're doing whatever they can to get that meth in to our jail too as well.
And like I say, that 45% is conservative because people in jail for property crimes likely attribute to meth problems. So that's just the raw facts when we can say that a meth charge, 45%, is what's sitting in the jail.
Other sheriff's department costs, this is our drug investigators. This does not include our admin time doing those drug reports, our evidence processing that methamphetamine, send it to the crime lab. We're not even touching those figures yet, but you look at our 2 drug investigators, we had one added a couple of years ago that helped out with our caseload. Our canines are mostly used, probably 90% of their time is spent in drug investigation, well, or drug detection. So we figure those costs as well. The overtime budget, so our overtime budget for 2020 was $166,000. That covers court costs, investigative time, things like that. Out of all that money, we only got reimbursed for roughly $45,000 through drug grants last year. So we're spending a lot of money on our overtime. And it's not to say it's all for drugs. It covers a wide variety of things.
One of the sources of frustration has been because heroin got to be such a problem in the large metro areas that the state kind of ignored the meth problem. And we've been fortunate that heroin hasn't been a major problem in our county, but because of heroin, it's kind of stolen some funding from the meth problem. And it's really captured everybody's attention is the heroin issue, and largely meth has been ignored. So we, like I say, we are part of a task force. We work with Pierce County, St. Croix County, and of course our county. And we do a lot of work, and that's very beneficial. It's great to be part of that group, and we share a lot of resources. If they need us, we'll send our guys down to Pierce County. Because of the hard work our deputies do, I think we benefit most out of that task force. We get their help up here quite a bit, and that's certainly a benefit.
This is just the sheriff's office. We're not even looking at other municipalities, what they're spending or what they're doing for drug crimes or meth crimes. So this is just kind of isolated to us at this point. So what's our total cost involved in what we figure for methamphetamine?
Thanks, Supervisor Luke.
Oh, yeah,
I have a question.
sure.
Are the canines certified for probable cause on the warrants for detection?
So yes, if they detect on a vehicle, that gives us probable cause to search a vehicle.
You don't have any trouble in the courts getting that through, is that?
No, and I tell you, that's the neat part of canine is, they generate so much of these cases that they're very scrutinized through the courts, and there's a lot of case law. And I tell you, the canine officers spend a lot of time researching the decisions that come down, and it's always evolving. It's always changing. They now have a lot of restrictions where if I stop a car in Lewis and the canine's down in Clear Lake, I can't detain that person for an hour to wait for the dog. This is always evolving and changing, but we closely monitor the legal procedures and we strictly adhere to them. And, they are a fantastic resource. They are largely responsible for the large generation of cases in this county. So,
And they're constantly being certified too for drug detection. So,
Yep.
All right.
so putting all those figures together, we figure we spend a little over $1.8 million on meth cases. And I think this is a very conservative number. I believe it's probably much higher. It would take a long work study to really get you an actual cost, but again, conservatively, I can say it's probably 1.8 million.
That's for 2020, right?
For 2020, yes.
The sheriff's office total budget is about 9.1 million.
So I didn't put the stat in there, but it's about 21% of our budget overall.
almost a quarter. Almost a quarter of our budget is geared towards meth.
And that's direct. You're not counting the D&Es and all the other stuff that are obviously involved with methamphetamine.
Right. This is just us. You look at now what the courts are tied up with and the DA's office. And, we've had good luck when we get help from the state as well. When they send us a special prosecutor, when we get some pretty premier big cases, we'll request their assistance in. And we've had really good success with that. We've seen some good results in the courts. But yeah, this is just scratching our surface. This is a very conservative number.
Right.
I think, like I said, if we did a good work study of it, of what we actually spent, I bet you it's going to be 3 times that.
Oh,
We just spend an exorbitant amount of our time dealing with meth and meth-related issues.
Some of the opportunities that I see is, COVID really crushed our ability to do some community outreach. And part of CJCC, we're forming a committee just on community outreach so we can get out there and do a little more education. That has really dropped off with COVID. We couldn't get in schools. We couldn't get out to the public and hold large town hall type events. But I think there's some opportunities there. And I think jail, when you look at the cost of jailing, and I'm troubled when I hear the President of the United States say that nobody should be imprisoned for drug problems. The concern I have with that is, sometimes that time in jail is often a reset for people. And when the time is right, I'm going to share a letter. We just got a really neat piece of mail from an individual who left our jail. He's been booked in over 27 times for meth, and he's on the straight and narrow. And part of that is the time he spent in jail. Our programs person helped him get a job, helped him get his driver's license. The encouragement he heard from the staff at the jail really resonated with him. So he took it upon himself to write us a 2-page letter complimenting the care and the compassion he got from being in jail. So I don't always view jail as wasted time. I think when someone is sitting in jail, we're getting them on a path to righteousness, and we're also we're keeping them away from the bad factors out there. And oftentimes when I talk to people that are addicted to meth, they blame a lot of it on their environment. I'm going to go back to the same friends I hung around who got me into this when I get out. So I think sometimes insulating those people from that negative gathering is a positive. So I don't view jail as just wasted time. I think often we can maybe use that as an opportunity to help people get back on the straight and narrow.
So we put a dollar amount to meth. Now let's look at other things that meth does. So meth not only brings some violence, but also victimizes our citizens. So this here is, these two pictures are related. So this gentleman was involved in an accident. I'm not mentioning any names or any of the case stuff, but there was an accident where the subject had meth in the car. I believe he tested positive for meth. Also in the vehicle with him was a Uzi, was that firearm. So, I mean, not only are they, victimizing other people, I mean, they're very, very violent.
And that was one of the alarming trends we saw last year. We had meth as a result in 6 of the fatalities in this county. And it's kind of shocked our medical examiner, where he and I have talked about once we can get back to some normal life, doing some community outreach, because we're seeing these tragedies now. It isn't just, oh, it's that group of people. It can be your family driving down the road that is now adversely impacted by this. And Don had a slide on there before, 8 weapons we seized with meth issues. That's on the increase. We're starting to see the meth users and dealers having their guns with them more often, and that leads to some terribly violent situations.
Do you want to talk about the other case that we just? Yeah, the shoot.
Oh, well, and again, we have to be kind of guarded because some of these cases are open, but we've had a shooting in this county that has occurred that never got reported, and that's in the works. We're investigating that right now, and that's directly related to meth dealing and meth use. So the violence associated with that drug is, horrendous, and that's why I look forward to when Human Services can present their impacts on families and children, what this epidemic has done. We see the negative law enforcement side, but the impact on the community as a whole is so alarming.
We're not just saying that it's violence and property crimes, but there's other things that are involved. The impaired driving, like you said, 6 fatalities related to meth or, impaired driving. We have our property crimes, abuse. We have child abuse, spousal abuse, family abuse, just abuse in general. And then the mental illness of it. We're now seeing a lot more people with meth psychosis that have been on meth for many, many years that are causing, a strain in our system.
And the long-term cost of that is still an unknown. Someone who's severely damaged their mental ability because of drug use, what the long-term cost of that, who knows? I mean, that's a concern.
But we don't want to point any fingers at anybody about, why this epidemic is so bad. I think it's going to take everybody on the same page, but they don't fear us anymore. They don't fear being caught. They don't fear prosecution anymore. For the fact that we're going to show a video here now where they did a buy right out in your parking lot here.
Yeah, this was back in October, right out in this parking lot, right here where most of the supervisors park.
So
You'll see this is a,
I don't know if you can speed it up to 38 seconds or.
this is a vehicle, this is a confidential informant. And our suspect comes in and sells us $400 worth of meth. 2:00 in the afternoon on an October day in Polk County. One of the sheriff's investigators watched the deal from our parking lot with binoculars. You know, we surround the area so that if something does go wrong, we can immediately respond. But that's the concerning. So there's a meth deal going down right there.
It's not just a quick thing. They're there for several minutes talking and doing the deal.
That individual was here to meet with his drug counselor, and he even mocked on the recording. Oh, yeah, I got to go see my drug counselor now as he's selling us $400 worth of methamphetamine. So I think that just kind of puts it in perspective how bad this problem is, that they don't fear the justice system, they don't fear the cops, they don't fear probation and parole. They mock the system when they do this. And this is not the first time. We've had other deals like this. It wasn't our idea to buy the meth here. It was presented as, hey, I'm going to Balsam Lake. Why don't we do it right there? So it just shows, I think it's so dysfunctional.
Those video play for quite a while. Like I said, it's not just a quick in and out thing. They sit there and talk a while and about, I think it's a minute. Can't remember the exact time, but you can see them finally hand the drugs to them and then they go their separate way. But
Yeah, our informant drives off and then that gentleman comes in here to meet with his drug counselor. So I was able to relate through public health, hey, let the counselor at least know this is what's going on. But it just shows that the problem is bigger than we probably realize, that we need all hands on deck is what we're saying to get this problem fixed. It's not, you know, we can go out and attack the front end and we're going to go out and arrest these people when we get the chance. But we got to find a way to break that chain of dysfunction. We got to find a way to get these people back to reality.
is there any questions at all?
You can stop that, Chad, then it just shows business as usual. People are coming in and out of here, and at the same time that's going on, we're buying meth.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair.
Oh,
This is excellent to watch. But you know, I've lived in the same house for 46 years and we never saw this kind of, like, 3 miles over. But now there's a drug house just up the road from us. They've both been arrested. You see drug sales at the Ward Lake Landing. You see drug sales down at McKenzie Lake. You see drug sales over by what we used to call the Old Lake dump, but now it's the gravel pit. I mean, everybody is just out in the open.
When the last stimulus checks came out, we had a huge uptick in our drug activity. I mean, people were spending that stimulus money on their drug habits. And like I say, there's an appetite in this county. Meth doesn't know any borders. It doesn't stop when you get to Burnett County. It doesn't stop when you get to Barron County. It's a regional problem. And like I say, I'm really proud of the work our staff does here. I mean, we don't ignore the problem. We hit the problem, but the problem is it's a bottomless pit right now. We keep going, and you catch one, 3 more pop up. You know, it's just a growing problem. So as a community, we got to figure out, you know, how we can combat this. And like I say, we're going to do our part, but I like the fact we're having these discussions because this is the level that we can start to work towards solutions, I think, as a whole.
It's going to take everybody, all the partners in this, the courts, DA's office, CJCC, treatment court, everybody's going to have to be on the same page.
go ahead.
Now, I know it's hard to do, but we have to get the public involved in this too, a lot more. And some will do it, other ones won't. Because they're afraid.
And you know what shocks me always, Joe, about the meth culture is the age variance of it. It isn't just a group of 18-year-old kids that do meth. It's
Up there.
up to 60-year-old people are out there doing meth. You know, and the things we struggle with because it's such a constant battle on our end is the burnout factor. You know, this is tough work to do this day in, day out. And I know the battle, what the courts are up against. You know, we don't have the money to house everybody that is involved in meth. We just can't do it. But, you know, there's a lot of things missing in the puzzle, the accountability factor. And I think that's the biggest takeaway out of this video of where we're selling it in the parking lot here. They're selling it here in our parking lot is just the lack of fear. There's no fear of the system. So how we ramp that up, I think this is a good dialogue to have through the whole county. You know, and I agree, public input is important, and that's the biggest thing we've suffered in the last year is that ability to get out and talk to people.
Here, I got a question. Comment, I guess. That was so disheartening for me to sit at the county board meeting and see them tunnel vision a chance for some money to the top priority trails and skip the ones below that, which are safer, drug enforcement, that type of thing. I mean, I hope the county board focuses on this and tries to free up some of that money for you, because I'm sure a couple $100,000 would be a great kick for you to get something done. I mean,
Yeah, and I think that's good that you guys have this discussion. I think that's the purpose here today is to just expose the true cost and the true impact this has. And you should see it at all levels. I mean, the money the courts spend just through child, you know, endangerment cases. And that's one other thing I want to mention. You know, years ago when we did search warrants with a drug unit, it was let's get in and get the product. And now it's shifted a little bit where, yeah, we get in and get the product, but we also look at what's the impact on this family. And our guys refer to them oftentimes as a quality of life opportunity. We've improved the quality of life for these kids because we've got the meth out of that house. We've put the parents in jail. And now that kid is going to have a good night. So that's a big shift in our work. We used to be all about catching the contraband. And I think now we look at the bigger picture that we're improving the quality of life of our citizens. And that's really our goal.
Great. Anybody else?
Good luck.
Okay, thanks a lot. Okay, now we got a discussion on action on resolution 1121. Donation from Terry Lattery.
Mr. Chair, number 10, the update from CJCC. Number A, we're actually going to push off till April, and that's on me. I just haven't had time to finish it up with the CJCC coordinator. Although I do want to, just a quick update. We're actually having 3 graduates of drug court. We're celebrating their graduation Friday night. 2 of them graduated during COVID and weren't able to have their celebration. 1 of them just graduated. So it's the first time we've done a group graduation. But 3 of them are graduating Friday night at 5 p.m. at the meeting place in Dresser. If you all are interested in coming, they'll have their dinner and cake and all that. But 3 graduates at once, and you know, it's been a little while since we've had a graduation. So I just wanted to make you guys aware that that was coming up this week.
How did that bowling thing go in Osceola?
Extremely well. They're doing more sober living events, and those have been greatly received. The participants go to them, their families come to them. It kind of gives them an outlet and a way to connect.
Quite a few people. Right?
And good options besides what, you know, other options may exist for them. So, you know, as you guys are supporting these initiatives and all, you know, there's tangible things we can see that we're making an impact on. I just want to make you aware of those 3 graduations Friday at 5 at the meeting place.
Okay. Anybody? All right. So there's nothing that we should do passing this to the county board or what?
Well, I mean, you can either recommend it or take no action on it or not recommend it.
Well, we really,
Are you talking about the resolution?
think we want to make an action on this, 1121.
I make a motion we forward to the county board.
Motion made to forward 1121 to the county board. Need a second.
I second it.
second by Joe. All in favor?
Right?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay. All right, let's move it on to the county board. The next one is Rowdy. What have you got for us on the ATV, UTV meetings that you've had?
Oh, I was looking, they were gonna show us this.
Okay.
This,
And
this pertains, Don, you want to show this? Mr.
Yeah.
Chair, you want us to show what the donation was?
oh,
If it's all right. So, sorry, going back to your resolution, Terry Lafferty from Star Prairie wanted to do something for the sheriff's department, to help make the deputies a little safer. So he bought 4 of these ballistic vests for 4 of our deputies and donated them, so.
how heavy are they? Not that it makes any difference.
Those are what's called a plate carrier. It would go over
Yeah.
your soft body armor and it gives you an additional protection in very high
Oh,
risk,
yeah.
very high risk situations. You want to go for a jog with that on?
Hell, I can't jog without
All
it.
day.
Yeah, with all the shit that's wearing out.
I got more out of my belly. And that's really good.
So,
But when you're going up against the potential rifle type risk, that's the right gear to have. So we appreciate that our citizens can, have enough concern for our deputies and wanted to make a donation, and that
That's great.
works out really good.
That thing will become lighter and lighter as you step forward into a situation. I'm
What
sure.
was his name?
Okay.
Terry Lafferty from Star Prairie.
Will that armor stop a high-powered rifle?
Yes.
That's pretty nice. Okay. Doug, you have a meeting with the ATV, UTV group, and I know they're moving exceptionally well. So what have you got for us?
Well, today, we had a meeting with the recreation officer, and Jeff Hahn he's taking over for Jeff Hahn. And it's a full-time position. And the sheriff explained that before to us, that opens up grants from the DNR at, I think he said 75% for boats and UTVs and snowmobiles. And so we discussed what they patrol and what they do, and it was a very interesting meeting. We learned a lot. Maybe if we set something up that the whole committee could listen to how this program is going,
When you think you're ready, that's the thing to do, or maybe the county board.
then that's true, because the chief deputy approached me to see if we wanted him to come and discuss different issues of the county and what they do. And it just was a real nice discussion.
I'd like to see, when you feel ready and that you've got some progress or something, I mean, you're making progress, but something quite positive or objective that you can push forward or that has been moved forward is a positive for the county. I'd like to see the nice report to the county board about ATV, UTV progress and what they've done on their own. Basically, that's the committee in its own interest and
And that's-
separate from the rest of them. That's the reason, one of the reasons we did it.
That's where we veered off toward the end, or not maybe as in and out all day, discussing the larger loop in Sterling, the town of Sterling.
Yeah.
And how it would benefit and it would be a state-funded trail. And so there is funds to create the trail, and we want to figure out how we put all that together. So that Ben is going to work with us and Mark and the club. And of course, they understand it much more than I do. And right at the end, I had them, I used the comment once in a while, it's a state trail. It's not a state trail because the Stour and Gandy and Cattail are state trails. This is just a state-funded trail because it becomes a network similar to the snowmobile trails.
You know, it's surprising when people are watching our action at the county board level for a number of reasons, particularly if the word trail is involved in it. That brings a lot of attention
There
to
is.
the action that's been taking place in that respect. So maybe getting to the county board might stimulate some assistance from the general public sitting out there too. Believe me, we get a lot of recommendations on what to do on some of the other trails by email. I mean, last time I think I had, I don't remember, I think it was 240 or 50 emails on, on the trail dilemma that was going through the county, excluding the ATV, UTV. And that took quite a burden off the decision-making on the other trail controversy that we were experiencing for years. So you guys have done a good job. And the more that we can get out to the public, I think the more input we will get from participants in ATV, UTV activities.
That was the comment made today, ties into what you're saying is having this recreation officer throughout the county.
Right.
It's a presence that people then can learn that he's there looking, to keep control over what's happening.
One of the major features or problems that I've been listening to or hearing over the years, actually, on ATV, is the safety factor. And having an organization that can train and kind of watch and help on the safety factor, making a trail safer and for what use it might be designed for, is going to be helpful on safety as we go through the years, I'm sure. So that's another thing that we might want to consider too, and when we get the safety officer involved in something like that, what he says is going to be extremely important to people that are going to utilize the facility or the trails. I think.
Got a question.
Yeah.
When did the Stour Trail get classified? I don't read classified as a state trail. I don't ever remember it being a state
Oh,
trail.
sure it is. Doug would be able to answer that question for us.
I can address that. A state trail is a state-owned trail. The state acquired that piece of property that we refer to as the Stour Seven Lakes Trail today in 2002 or early 2003. And then we entered into an MOU with the state, the DNR, to develop the master plan, which we went through that process from 2003 until 2004 when that original plan was approved. So it became a state trail as soon as it didn't become a state-owned property. That's why it's a state trail. And that's why it requires a master plan, because it's a state-owned property. That's why the master plan is required. So 2003, Joe.
Okay. Anything else, Doug?
No, that's
You're
pretty.
doing a great job. That's good. Okay, update from CJCC.
Well, that was actually I may be looking at a different one. I had that as number 10.
I took this off the internet.
Okay. I've got the next one, number 13, being the discussion regarding the Centerpiece Sports Ag Complex.
Which one? I don't have that one. What?
This is the one I grabbed from the clerk. That may be why we're off, Mr. Chair. That way maybe why I thought
When
we
you
missed one.
started giving me numbers, I got.
I show us at number 13.
Oh. Yeah, well, okay. You want to address that?
Yeah, there's not a whole lot to update. There's been, a little talking to stakeholders and that. We did meet, just because the vendor came to us, we met with a representative of a company that's built a number of these throughout Wisconsin and does like a lot of government construction in Wisconsin. That was helpful because he gave us some examples, and it was even more helpful because he gave us contact information for people who conduct the studies, the feasibility studies, and we talked about, missteps that he's seen other places make and errors that they've made in their feasibility studies. And kind of after the fact, that we wish we would have done that, or we didn't think about that. So I think that was Mo, Vince and I met with him a couple weeks ago. And that was very helpful, pointing us in the direction of feasibility study groups and kind of what to be looking for as we start talking about this further and talk about maybe doing a feasibility study.
Yeah, I think when you guys came out with the letter, kind of introducing the fact that
Right.
we were going to be potentially doing something over a period of time, I think it was fairly well misunderstood. Something that we were going to be acting on immediately and start developing some huge plan. And,
Yeah, I think, I think immediate is the wrong term for that, because even if you started today, you're talking about, this is a multi-year type of thing. And it's a multi-step. Right now, I think the only place we're at is just discussing the idea, what's the interest in the idea, what would be the next steps, and what would be the factors involved in the next steps if we went down that path.
participation from
Right,
communities and
right.
like that too.
So there's, it's all there hasn't been concrete work done other than these would be the steps, this is the idea. Next steps would be, what would a feasibility study involve? Would you guys be interested in doing a feasibility study and the other external stakeholders? Without that study, you can't really go beyond that anyway.
Well, I'm glad you're clearing that up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, this would be I don't think anybody, it's a multi-year
Yeah,
undertaking.
I knew that, I understood it, I had a little more information probably than a lot of people. Okay, anybody have any questions in reference to that at this particular time? Let it develop for recreational purposes within the county. Okay, how about work plan for 2021? Go ahead.
I left out one line when I said we have a new recreation officer, and he's Deputy Sheriff Tyrell Hansen.
What?
It's Deputy Sheriff Tyrell Hansen.
Tyrell Hansen?
Yes. Here I looked down and I have his card laying there to bring up who it is, and I forget I omitted it.
Funny you didn't get corrected by our sheriff, but that's all right. Maybe you don't know everything that's going on. Or maybe he didn't hear you. Okay, with that correction, do we have anything on subject matters for the next meeting?
We'll have the CJCC presentation on the methamphetamine epidemic.
Okay.
And then, did you want presentation regarding the recreation patrol deputy?
Sure.
I was trying to glean how you wanted that. Did you want that to come to this committee, or what's the committee's pleasure?
We can start here and
That would be good. Oh, okay.
So we'll have those two issues on the April agenda.
Overview of the program?
Yeah. Be great.
the sheriff had talked about grants from the DNR. I don't know if it's a meeting. Yep, talking. I just remember when you were telling that.
No, we get reimbursed. We participate in all three of the programs, which is the snowmobile ATV and yeah, an overview of that would be great for you to hear, because it's a fantastic program. We get a full-time guy at roughly 3/4 the cost of the cost.
Okay, other than that, do you have anything else for the next meeting? Or something may come up. Other than that, I think we will complete it according to your agenda. That's it. I had a lot more on mine, but I guess that only. All for adjournment.
So move.
So move.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Before,
Yeah.